The last time I heard my mother's voice, she told me not to call again. According to my sister, I'd quit medical school, wasted thousands of dollars, and lied to the entire family. My parents believed every word. They cut me off that same week. For 5 years, they missed everything: my residency graduation, my wedding, every holiday, every achievement. Not because I disappeared, because they refused to listen. Then one rainy night, my phone rang. My sister had been rushed to the ER. And when I walked into her hospital room as the attending surgeon, my mother's face turned white. Because the lie that destroyed my family was about to die. Before we jump in, hit like and subscribe, and tell me, what country are you watching from? Let's see which country shows up the most in the comments. My name is Emily Carter, and 5 years ago, I lost my entire family because of a lie. Not a misunderstanding. Not a mistake. A lie. The strange part is that I didn't even know it was happening until the damage was already done. Growing up, I was close to my parents. My father worked as an electrician, and my mother taught elementary school. We weren't wealthy, but we were the kind of family that ate dinner together every night and celebrated every small victory. And from the time I was 10 years old, I wanted to be a doctor. My parents were proud of that dream. They framed my science fair ribbons. They attended every award ceremony. They told everyone in town that one day their daughter would wear a white coat. My older sister, Rachel, used to smile whenever they said it. Back then, I thought she was happy for me. Now I know better. Rachel had always been the center of attention. She was outgoing, funny, and knew exactly how to make every conversation about herself. Whenever someone praised me, she somehow found a way to redirect the spotlight. I never thought much about it. We were sisters. I trusted her. When I was accepted into medical school, my parents threw a celebration dinner. They couldn't stop smiling. Rachel smiled too. But when I look back now, I remember something strange. She barely spoke all evening. Medical school was everything people said it would be. Long nights, endless exams, clinical rotations, constant pressure. Most weeks, I barely slept. I moved several hours away from home and spent most of my time studying or working at the hospital. Phone calls became shorter. Visits became less frequent. I thought my family understood. Apparently, Rachel saw an opportunity. The first sign of trouble came during my second year. My mother called unexpectedly. She sounded cold, distant, almost angry. "Emily, is there something you need to tell us?" I remember standing outside the hospital parking garage, confused. "What do you mean?" There was a long silence. Then she said something that made no sense. "Why didn't you tell us you dropped out?" I laughed because I honestly thought she was joking. "Dropped out? Mom, what are you talking about?" But she wasn't joking. Rachel had told them I failed several classes and quit medical school months earlier. According to her, I was too embarrassed to admit it. She claimed I was pretending to still be enrolled while secretly working part-time jobs. The story was ridiculous. I immediately offered proof. Grades, schedules, student records, anything. But every explanation seemed to make things worse. Rachel had already prepared them. Whenever I presented evidence, she had an answer. Whenever I defended myself, she claimed I was lying. Somehow, she had convinced my parents that every piece of proof was fabricated. The situation spiraled quickly. Phone calls became arguments. Arguments became accusations. My father accused me of wasting years of support. My mother said she didn't recognize the person I'd become. I felt like I was trapped inside a nightmare. Nothing I said mattered. No one listened. The worst conversation happened 3 months later. I called after finishing a 16-hour shift. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, desperate. "Please," I told my mother, "just come visit me. Come see the hospital. Meet my professors. Let me prove this." For a moment, I thought she might finally agree. Instead, her voice hardened. "If you wanted us to believe you, you shouldn't have lied in the first place." I felt my chest tighten. "Mom, I didn't." "Stop." The word hit harder than a slap. Then came the sentence that changed everything. "Don't call us again until you're ready to tell the truth." The line went dead. I sat in my car staring at my phone for almost an hour. That was the day I realized I had lost them. Not because I stopped loving them, because someone they trusted had convinced them I was someone I wasn't. The next year, I graduated from residency near the top of my class. Hundreds of people filled the auditorium. Families cheered. Cameras flashed. When my name was called, everyone around me stood to celebrate. Everyone except the 2 empty seats I'd saved for my parents. And as I stared at those seats, I finally understood something. Rachel's lie hadn't just stolen my family. It had stolen years of our lives. And I had no idea the truth would eventually find its way back to all of us. The first year after that graduation was the hardest. Not because of the long shifts, not because of the pressure, not because of the responsibility. I could handle all of that. What I couldn't handle was looking into the crowd during every major moment of my life and knowing exactly who wasn't there. My parents. Every achievement felt incomplete. A few months after residency, I accepted a position as an emergency physician at one of the largest hospitals in the state. The work was intense. Every shift brought new challenges. Some days I helped save lives. Other days I sat with families during the worst moments of theirs. The job taught me something important. Life is fragile, and time is something you never get back. That realization made losing my family hurt even more. I still tried to reach them. For the first 2 years, I never completely gave up. I mailed birthday cards, Christmas cards, anniversary cards. Every single one came back unopened. Return to sender. 3 words that somehow felt colder every time I saw them. I left voicemails. None were returned. I sent emails. No replies. Eventually, the silence became its own answer. Around that time, I met Daniel. He was kind, patient, and completely different from anyone I'd dated before. Most importantly, he listened. When I told him what happened with my family, he didn't try to fix it. He simply stayed. Sometimes that's what people need most. Not solutions. Just someone willing to stay. 2 years later, we got married. It was a beautiful ceremony. Small. Simple. Exactly what we wanted. But when I walked down the aisle, there was an empty space where my father should have been. No father-daughter dance. No family photos. No proud parents watching from the front row. I smiled through the day anyway, because I refused to let someone else's choices ruin my future. Still, the absence never completely disappeared. Every holiday reminded me. Every birthday reminded me. Every milestone reminded me. One afternoon, nearly 4 years after my parents cut contact, I ran into an old family friend at a grocery store. After we exchanged greetings, she hesitated before speaking. "Your parents still talk about you sometimes." My heart immediately sped up. "What do they say?" She looked uncomfortable. The answer told me everything. "They think you left medicine years ago." I felt physically sick. 5 years. Almost 5 years. And they still believed it. The lie hadn't faded. It had grown. According to people in town, Rachel had built an entire story around it. She told relatives that I'd failed out of school, that I couldn't handle the pressure, that I was too ashamed to admit it. Some even believed I had disappeared because I didn't want anyone discovering the truth. I remember sitting in my car afterward, staring through the windshield. For years, I'd assumed the truth would eventually surface on its own. Surely someone would ask questions. Surely someone would check. Surely reality would win. But reality doesn't always win by itself. Sometimes lies survive because people choose the version that's easier to believe. That day changed something inside me. For the first time, I stopped chasing their approval. I stopped trying to convince people. I stopped writing letters. I stopped waiting for the phone to ring. Instead, I focused on the life in front of me. My marriage. My patience. My future. Slowly, I found peace. Not complete peace, but enough. Then 5 years passed. 5 full years without hearing my parents' voices. 5 years without seeing Rachel. 5 years without being part of their lives. By then, I had become one of the senior physicians in our emergency department. One Thursday evening, I was halfway through a 12-hour shift when the trauma pager sounded. The ER instantly came alive. Nurses moved faster. Monitors beeped. Staff rushed toward the ambulance entrance. The radio crackled with details. Female patient. Serious injuries. Critical condition. Estimated arrival 2 minutes. I grabbed a chart and headed toward trauma room 3. Then I heard the patient's name. Rachel Carter. For a second, the entire world seemed to stop. My stomach dropped. My hands froze. Rachel. My sister. The sister who had destroyed our family. The sister I hadn't seen in 5 years. The ambulance doors burst open. The medical team rolled her inside. I forced myself into physician mode. Professional. Focused. Calm. Nothing else mattered. Not our history. Not the betrayal. Not the years of silence. Only the patient. I stepped into the trauma room and prepared to take charge. Then I looked toward the corner of the room. And there they were. My mother. My father. Standing beside Rachel's bed. The first time I'd seen them in 5 years. And judging by the shock on their faces, they never expected to see me there either. For a few seconds, nobody moved. My mother stared at me. My father stared at me. Neither of them seemed capable of speaking. The last image they had of me was a daughter who supposedly quit medical school and walked away from her future. Now I was standing in front of them, wearing a physician's coat, leading an emergency team. But this wasn't the time. Rachel needed help. Let's focus on the patient, I said calmly. The words broke the silence. Immediately, the room returned to motion. Nurses began reporting vital signs. Lab orders were entered. Scans were requested. I stepped beside Rachel's bed and began assessing her condition. She was conscious but frightened. When her eyes met mine, I saw something I hadn't seen in years. Guilt. Real guilt. For the next hour, I focused entirely on medicine. Nothing else mattered. Not the betrayal. Not the missing years. Not the family standing behind me. Only the patient. Eventually, Rachel was stabilized. Her injuries were serious, but not life-threatening. The danger had passed. As the staff slowly cleared the room, I finally allowed myself to breathe. That was when I heard my mother speak. Emily. Her voice cracked. I turned toward her. Tears were already running down her face. My father looked equally shaken. Neither seemed to know where to begin. Finally, he asked the question that had been hanging in the air since they saw me. You're a doctor? The irony almost made me laugh. 5 years. 5 years of silence. And that was their first question. Yes, I answered. Neither spoke. I could see them trying to process it, trying to fit reality into the story they'd believed for half a decade. My mother wiped her eyes. But Rachel told us. Her voice faded. For the first time, she sounded uncertain. I reached into my work bag and pulled out my phone. Then I opened a folder. Graduation photos, residency certificates, medical conference presentations, years of achievements, years of proof, years they never saw. I handed the phone to my father. His hands trembled as he scrolled. Photo after photo, certificate after certificate, year after year. His face slowly collapsed. My mother looked over his shoulder. Then she began crying harder. Oh my God, she whispered. Neither of them could look at me. Finally, my father lowered the phone. Why didn't we know? I looked at him quietly. Then I answered honestly. I tried to tell you. Silence. Heavy silence. The kind that hurts more than shouting. My mother covered her mouth. The memory had finally reached her. The phone calls. The letters. The messages. Every chance she'd refused to take. Then a weak voice spoke from the hospital bed. Rachel, I need to tell you something. The room became still again. Rachel stared at the ceiling for several seconds. Then she turned toward our parents. I lied. No excuses. No explanations. Just 2 words. I watched my mother's expression change instantly. Confusion. Disbelief. Then devastation. Rachel started crying. I was jealous. My father slowly sat down in a chair. Rachel continued. Everyone talked about Emily. Everyone was proud of her. Every achievement. Every accomplishment. She wiped her eyes. I convinced myself nobody noticed me anymore. The confession seemed to drain years from her face. I told one lie. Her voice shook. Then another. Then another. My mother looked completely broken. You knew we stopped talking to her. Rachel nodded. You knew we missed everything? Another nod. Graduation. Birthdays. Holidays. My wedding. 5 years. 5 years gone. Nobody spoke. There was nothing left to say. The truth was finally standing in the room. Unavoidable. Painful. Real. Eventually, my father stood and walked toward me. For a moment, I thought he might try to explain. Instead, he simply said, I'm sorry. 3 words. 5 years late, but sincere. My mother joined him. I don't expect forgiveness, she said through tears. But I'm so sorry. I looked at both of them. The anger I'd carried for years wasn't gone. The hurt wasn't gone either. But standing there, I realized something important. Holding on to that pain wouldn't give me those years back. Nothing would. I can't pretend this didn't happen, I said. Both nodded. But I don't want to spend the rest of my life carrying it. My mother began crying again, this time from relief. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trust wouldn't magically return. 5 years couldn't be repaired overnight. But for the first time in a very long time, the truth had finally won. A few days later, I watched my parents leave the hospital with Rachel. Before disappearing through the doors, my father turned and looked back at me. Not with doubt. Not with disappointment. With pride. The same pride I'd been searching for all those years. And as they walked away, I realized something. The lie had stolen 5 years from our family, but it wasn't going to steal the rest.